Hey guys, it's Andy here from Evertrek. So yeah, how much does it cost to climb Kilimanjaro? Great question. When it comes to obviously looking at these kind of trips, Kili being one of those big bucket list trips, you want to look at the costs of it, and there are some things you need to consider. Now, when you're paying for the trek, depending on who you go with, but essentially with us and Evertrek, our trip to Kilimanjaro is £2,300. Now that's everything land only. So essentially when you arrive, when you're picked up at the airport, taken to the hotel, the whole trip, if you like, your food, all the guides, everything like that, if you think as part of your trip is covered. The sort of external expenses, things like souvenirs, things like beers, anything like that really, or any sort of side trips that you want to do outside of that, obviously is an external cost. But essentially £2,300 is how much it costs to actually climb Kilimanjaro. Now, when we're looking at the other costs, so the other biggie really are your international flights. Now, depending on sort of where you're flying from, I mean, just to use the UK as an example, if you're flying from, say, London, any flight to Kilimanjaro, usually between £400 to £700, depending on sort of what time of year you go. Also as well in terms of, how far in advance you can book your flight. Because sometimes, you can get some really cheap deals. But one thing we kind of suggest, and I think especially over the last sort of 12 months or so, we're looking for the flexibility. So we always say if you're going to book these flights, do book them direct with your airlines, because you can tend to, the bigger airlines, especially when you're looking at Qatar, Turkish Airlines, you're looking at Oman Air, the biggies, Etihad, Emirates, they're all really flexible when it comes to moving your dates. I think over the last 12 months they've had to accommodate that because of our good friend COVID. So yeah, definitely when it comes to your flights, do take that into account. So that's your international flights. The other thing is your high altitude trekking insurance. So generally for a trip like this long, you're looking at sort of 10, 11 days, climbing Kili, you have to have high altitude insurance. Now there are companies you can go to for this, and it depends on if you've got any pre-existing conditions, medical conditions, your age, but you're looking at anything, I'd say between £100 and £200 generally. If you are, sort of 60 or above and you've got any medical issues, that might be a little bit more, so it's worth putting into, sort of weighing up into the cost, if you like. The other big cost is your equipment. Now, when you're climbing Kili, you don't really need any technical gear as such. But, there is gear that you do need. And most of it, if you're used to hiking, you're already walking, you've already got a backpack, you've already got, walking boots, all that stuff. You'd be surprised how much you can actually use on Kili. But essentially, you want to plan for all 4 seasons. So we're talking down jacket, waterproofs, waterproof bottoms. You're looking at base layers, you're looking at mid layers, you're looking at, socks, beanies, backpacks, duffel bags, bottles of water, all that comes with it. Certainly below this video, I will put a link to the kit list for Kilimanjaro. That'll give you a bit more of an idea in terms of, all the equipment you need. But essentially, how much that costs is dependent on what you've already got. So, it could be £100, £200, it could be £1,000. Just depends on how much you want to spend on that and go all out. I mean, as you know, there's varying levels of quality out there. But this is Kilimanjaro, you're only walking. Like I said, you don't need any technical gear. But that being said, you want to make sure you've got, a decent down jacket, especially one that, especially on summit night, because Kili is all about summit night, is that it's bloody freezing. So you want to make sure that you've got that as well, and the multiple layers, especially gloves, when your extremities are going to get cold. So yeah, those are, I'd say, the main costs. There might be some smaller costs that come in. Look at your visas. So to get into Tanzania, you need to get a visa. Now, some people, and we recommend this, do it before you arrive. So, it's nice and easy. You can get through. You can do it when you arrive, but sometimes there can be queues. It can take a little bit longer. And, when you land, you just want to get to your hotel, don't you? So, most of the time we say get it done before. And that costs, I think, about £40, £50. So, yeah, when it comes to, how much it costs to climb Kilimanjaro, those are the main bits, if you like. I hope that answered your question.